Have you ever walked out of a movie theater feeling like your brain was tied in a literal knot? You know the feeling. Christopher Nolan's Tenet has this legendary reputation for leaving us all completely bewildered, just trapped in a crazy labyrinth of backward-moving bullets and overlapping timelines. But today, we're untangling the whole shebang. Welcome to The Explainer, where we're breaking down the world of Tenet, deciphering the mechanics, and giving you the ultimate master key to finally understand this cinematic puzzle. Right off the bat, early in the film, a scientist named Laura gives the protagonist, and honestly us, the audience, a very specific piece of advice about time inversion. She says, "Don't try to understand it, feel it." And to be perfectly fair, that's actually solid advice for anyone going through this intense, action-packed ride for the very first time. Just letting the sheer spectacle wash over you, that's half the fun.
But what if we could understand it? What if we don't have to stay in the dark? Well, just feeling the movie is a great ride. Actually grasping the underlying physics, the ancient structural blueprints, and those hidden character arcs, it unlocks a completely new level of appreciation for Nolan's genius. We absolutely have the tools to map this Twilight world out entirely. Okay, let's move on to our first main concept, the rules of time inversion, and see how this builds the foundation for everything else. To really grasp the mechanics here, we first got to talk about entropy. In our normal linear reality, entropy is essentially a one-way street of increasing disorder. Think about a water balloon. When you drop it, it falls and shatters all over the pavement. That is forward entropy. Now imagine the absolute weirdness of watching that puddle of water defy gravity, gather itself back up, reform the rubber skin, and jump directly back into your hand as a perfectly intact balloon. Sounds crazy, right? Well, in the universe of Tenet, this fundamental law of thermodynamics can actually be artificially manipulated and reversed. And this brings us to a massive physical difference between standard sci-fi time travel and the localized inversion we see in the movie. You know, in a typical sci-fi story, you punch a date into a dashboard, hit a button, and boom, you instantly jump back to 1955. But in Tenet, you have to physically live backwards through time to reach the past. It's a grueling physical toll. If you need to go back a week to fix a mistake, you literally have to lock yourself in a shipping container, hook yourself up to oxygen, and sit there for 7 full days watching the world outside play out in reverse. You age while the world unages. It's wild. So to actually achieve this reversed state, the characters use a machine called a turnstile, and the process is just fascinating. Picture this. You walk into a highly secured room, you enter the red side where time flows forward. But before you even step into the machine, you have to look through this proving glass window. Why? Because you're waiting to see your backward-moving self step in at the exact same moment. If you don't see yourself, you cannot proceed. It's a strict rule. Once you step in, you emerge on the blue side completely inverted. The world is now retreating away from you. And because your body's entropy is reversed, you can't even breathe the regular air around you. It literally won't pass through your inverted lungs. So you have to lug around your own specialized oxygen supply everywhere you go. With those mechanics established, let's take a look at the ancient Sator Square. Now that we know how inversion works, check out the stunning architectural framework Nolan used to build this entire story. This 5x5 Latin palindrome grid, it's an actual historical artifact. It was literally discovered preserved in the ashes of Pompeii, dating all the way back to 79 AD. Take a second to appreciate the sheer symmetry of this thing. Whether you read it left to right or top to bottom, the words are identical. It's a perfect self-contained puzzle that functions seamlessly forward and backward. And what makes this absolutely brilliant is how it dictates the entire movie. I mean, every single word from that 2,000-year-old artifact perfectly maps to a major element in the plot. André Sator is our terrifying villain. Auripo is the unseen Spanish art forger who makes the fake Goya painting. Tenet is the secret organization fighting for survival. Opera is the location of that explosive opening siege in Kyiv. And Rotus is Sator's security company building the turnstiles. The whole cinematic plot was meticulously reverse-engineered from this ancient Roman puzzle. It proves the film itself is designed to function exactly like a palindrome. All right, let's dive into the palindromic timeline itself, which can honestly look like a crazy tangle of red and blue lines if you don't have the proper context. Unraveling this timeline reveals one of the most mind-blowing realizations of the entire story. 3 of the most massive, world-altering events all happen synchronously on the exact same day. Let's call it Hour Zero. At this exact moment, the protagonist is fighting for his life at the Kyiv Opera. Sator and Kat are violently clashing on their yacht vacation in Vietnam, and the apocalyptic final battle at the Stalls 12 Hypercenter is simultaneously taking place. The narrative expands outward from this single day, And then the characters invert, traveling weeks backwards through time, just to resolve everything on this exact same date. Grasping this totally changes how you watch the movie, because it means the very beginning and the very end of the film are happening simultaneously. Mind blown, right?
And this brings us to the climax, the Stalsk 12 pincer.
Here is where the timeline and the mechanics violently collide on the battlefield. Imagine the sheer chaos of this temporal pincer strategy. You've got the red team, heavily armed, moving forward in normal time, executing an assault. Simultaneously, the blue team is moving backward in time through that exact same war zone. Because they're moving in opposite directions, they can share intelligence across the timeline. The climax of this coordination is just stunning. The red team fires a rocket to destroy the top half of a massive building, while the inverted blue team fires to destroy the bottom half at the exact same fraction of a second. It's a flawless, mind-bending tactical distraction. But amidst all those explosions, there's a profound, deeply emotional thread playing out. Let's track Neil's continuous loop during this battle. Neil is constantly shifting between forward and backward time just to keep the protagonist alive. He drives a truck and honks the horn to warn them of a booby trap. Later, he drops ropes down into the subterranean hypercenter to pull the team out right before a massive blast. But the tragic beauty of Neil's journey really hits when he realizes the timeline requires him to invert one final time. He has to willingly go back down into that hypercenter, unlock a gate he already knows is locked, and purposefully step in front of Volkov's inverted bullet. He takes it in reverse, dying instantly, solely so the protagonist can complete the mission and save the world.
Let's move to the emotional core of this explainer, Neil's doomed friendship.
While Nolan explicitly tells us that what's happened, leaning heavily into a deterministic philosophy, there was a brilliant, wildly popular fan theory that completely recontextualizes the movie. It gives the story this staggering emotional punch. We have to ask, is the charming, highly capable Neil actually Kat and Satter's young son Max, all grown up and inverted from the future? There is a hidden anagram that makes this theory incredibly compelling. If you take the last 4 letters of the child's full name, Maximilian, L-I-E-N, and invert them, it spells Neil. No way, right? The implications here are enormous. It means the older, battle-hardened protagonist recruits a young Max in the future. He essentially becomes a father figure to him, trains him, and then sends him on a grueling, years-long inverted journey back into the past. Neil's entire mission is to save his mother, Kat, and to guide the younger, inexperienced protagonist who doesn't even know him yet. This realization makes Neil's final, heartbreaking goodbye to the protagonist incredibly profound. When Neil smiles and says, "I'll see you at the beginning, friend," he means it literally. They are moving in completely opposite directions through time. Neil has known and cared for the protagonist for years, but for the protagonist, this deep, consequential friendship is literally just about to start. As we wrap up this explainer on Tenet's Twilight World, there's a lingering mystery about the nature of choice that I really want you to think about. If everything is part of a grand temporal loop where what's happened has already happened, are we just playing parts already written? Or do our choices actually matter even more? Because our active decisions are the very gears that make the clock tick. I highly encourage you to go rewatch the film armed with this new understanding of its brilliant palindromic structure. The puzzle is beautiful once you see the whole picture. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.